Now, women's issues have been a hot topic this election, and both candidates have their own ideas as to how they should be dealt with.
With more on the issue, here's Star City's reporter Christian Folsom.
Christian Folsom joins me now. He took a look at those women's issues. Christian, what specifically are both parties focusing on in terms of women's issues?
Right, so yeah, I mean, it's not just Hillary, obviously, it's Trump's campaign as well that are focusing on them. They both have their own ideas about how they should be doing things. But the two marquee issues are the wage gap between men and women, where in the United States, for every dollar that a man makes, a woman is making only 79 cents. Also, the other big marquee issue is the paid maternity leave. The United States does not guarantee paid maternity leave.
Now, in terms of a global perspective, where does the United States rank in these women's issues? Are they doing well? Are they doing poorly?
Well, in terms of the wage gap between men and women, it's a little less than average in terms of the world, but it's not detrimental, right? 79 cents for a dollar, it's bad, correct, it's not a good thing, but it's not as bad as some other countries. But when it comes to paid maternity leave, the United States is the only industrialized nation in the entire world that doesn't guarantee paid maternity leave. And actually, it's one of only 4 countries in the entire world in general that don't, those other 3 countries being Swaziland, Lesotho, and Papua New Guinea, and the United States. So not very good in terms of that front.
Christian took a look at both of these issues and more specifically and more in depth on what Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton plan to do about them.
Welcome back to Star City News. Well, more drama in D.C. over the new Supreme Court nominee Neil Gorsuch. Star City News reporter Christian Folsom has more on that story. Christian?
Thanks, Anthony. Neil Gorsuch's Supreme Court nomination took a step out of committee today. The Democrats now have enough support to pressure the Republicans into doing what they have been pressuring and threatening to do all along: invoke the nuclear option to push his nomination through.
The world was shocked as nerve gas bombs were dropped in civilians Tuesday in Syria. We want to warn you that some of the images you're about to see in this next report are graphic. We go to Star City News reporter Christian Folsom live in the newsroom for more. Christian?
Thanks, Anthony. Global outrage today as 70 innocent civilians were killed in a nerve gas bombing in Syria on Tuesday. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad is denying any involvements in the bombings, and while President Trump acknowledges the atrocities, he is currently in talks to determine what actions should be taken next. An executive order from President Trump completing the construction of the North Dakota Access Pipeline didn't stop thousands of protesters nationwide, including a rally at the steps of the Capitol last weekend. Renee Sans-Souci of the Omaha tribe says the impact of this pipeline could have devastating consequences. Bold, Nebraska has actively opposed both the Keystone and Dakota Access pipelines. Bold, Nebraska Director Linda Anderson explained her support for the protest. Sioux Tribe is continuing its uphill battle by turning to the courts to file a lawsuit against the pipeline project. Supporters of the pipeline project say that they will be environmentally safe and will also help to create jobs.
Welcome back to Star City News. I'm Tommy Rezach.
And I'm Christian Folsom. Well, we've heard about the blizzards, but what's forecasted for Lincoln? Let's check in with Star City's Jocelyn Darling. Jocelyn?
Back to you at the desk.
Well, Tommy, not exactly the most ideal weather for any sports right now, but this weekend it's supposed to warm up with the baseball games coming up.
Yeah, absolutely, and it wasn't ideal driving this morning. That little dusting of snow made things a little slick out there, for myself included, but we made it. It's all melted off, and yeah, warm weather coming up. Baseball this weekend, I'm looking forward to it for sure.
Early Thursday morning, a 4-alarm fire broke out in the locker room at 48th and Prescott. By the time all 4 alarms sounded, crews had gone into Hotspot Tanning Salon and Edward Jones Investments. A 4-alarm fire refers to the number of fire department engines needed to fight the blaze. The cause of the fire is still unknown. Sergeant Cooper of the Lincoln Police Department was on the scene.
The building will be able to be repaired, but yes, all the inventory is full loss. There's 2 fire investigators here now, and they're still working to determine the cause. And they are working with the neighboring businesses. No extensive damage there, just smoke damage and a little water damage.
Multiple crews were working to clean up the damage to the businesses. The Lincoln Fire Department dispatched 2 fire inspectors to determine the cause. The process is no easy task, says Fire Inspector Rick Campos.
We look at fire patterns, we interview people, witnesses, and kind of trying to just recreate the scene is what we do. Trying to figure out how the fire traveled, and then what caused that fire.
This 4-alarm fire here at 48th and Prescott may have been completely contained, but as you can see behind me here, the locker room with the caution tape in front of it will not be reopening for business anytime soon. For Star City News, I'm Christian Folsom. Last year, Nebraska became the first conservative state to repeal the death penalty in over 40 years. After Governor Ricketts vetoed the bill to abolish the death penalty, the legislator overrode him with a 30-19 vote. Now it is up to the voters to decide. The states in blue are the states that have banned or abolished the death penalty before or after the year 2000. Nebraska could become just the 20th of those states in the United States of America to ban the death penalty. Only 37 people have been executed in Nebraska by the death penalty, and since the introduction of the electric chair in 1959, that number dwindles to only 4 men. This year marks the 20th anniversary of the execution of one of those 4 men, Jonathan Joubert. Joubert pled guilty in 1984 to the killings of 3 boys, 11-year-old Ricky Stenson in Portland, Maine, 13-year-old Danny Joe Eberly in Bellevue, Nebraska, and 12-year-old Christopher Walden in Papillion, Nebraska. Joubert was described as very intelligent but always troubled. In all 3 murders, he stripped the young boys down to their underwear and tied them up, killing them with a knife. This earned him the nicknames the Nebraska Boy Snatcher and the Woodford Slasher. Current Omaha World Herald legislative reporter Paul Hamill was one of the witnesses to Joubert's execution.
So you sit down and the curtains close, and then suddenly you see the thing open, and here's John Joubert strapped into the electric chair. And I remember he mouthed like, "I love you," to this woman that he had been corresponding with. And that didn't last too long.
Joubert's case was unique because he murdered in 2 separate states, one with the death penalty and one without. In Maine, he was given a life sentence behind bars with no chance of parole. However, in Nebraska, where the death penalty is a question mark now, Joubert was executed in the electric chair.
You can't really see, his eyes, you can't really see his face. And then you hear this really dull thunk, and that's the charge, and you could just see his body, rearing up into this electric chair. And they did that 3 times.
Because of John Joubert's case and many other executions with the electric chair, it has been discontinued as a method of the death penalty. Now, Nebraskans need to decide whether or not to discontinue the death penalty altogether, and whether or not they'd like to join these 19 states behind me. For Star City News, I'm Christian Folsom. According to USA.gov, there are 601 federal agencies in the U.S. Of those agencies, only one does not receive any federal funding, the USPS. To make matters worse, in 2006, Congress mandated that they pay all of their retirement for the next 75 years, totaling over $5 billion per year. Roger Humphreys, the customer relations coordinator for the Omaha Post Office, says the mandates are unheard of outside of the USPS.
No company is required to do that. No other government agency, no private company, no other company in the United States, or as far as the world, as far as I know, has that kind of restriction or commitment that we have to do.
Beth Terrebonne, a carrier in Papillion, has to deal with people's misconceptions about the USPS often.
Yeah, I've had people come out to me and say, I pay your salary with my taxes. And I don't really respond much to it because people don't really get it, so that's fine. But mostly what I say back to them is, you actually don't, but okay. It doesn't really bother me, but I do wish that more people understood that we are not tax funded.
If not for the mandate, Roger Humphreys says the self-sufficient USPS would actually be in the green, not in the red.
We are now $15 billion in debt, and we can only go to $15 billion. That's our debt limit that's been set years ago. So yes, are we in the red? Absolutely. But if we did not have that pre-funding, just this last year alone, we would have made, the Postal Service would have made $200 million. So we're making money.
Reporting for Star City News, I'm Christian Folsom.